All right.
Hello, I'm Molly Caron, and you're watching Access TV. This episode is dedicated to David Groom, our fearless technical director, who was the conduit between Shaw and all these volunteers that are among me that gather every month to bring you this information. He will be missed. Well, Access TV will be falling into our favorite topics of justice and community and all the characters in between. This episode, we will take you to Oppenheimer Park, where the proud Tent City citizens carry on. There is an SRO tenant convention in the near future and advanced polls that are giving us 8 days to lead up to the final municipal election date in November. We have issues and we're going to discuss them here. We also have our guests, Savannah Walling, who is the director, the artistic director of the Heart of the City Festival, celebrating its 11th year. She's also the Associate Artistic Director of Vancouver's Moving Theatre, and she will tell us about their future productions. Mark Nguyen, Vietnamese community spokesperson, will be in to tell me about Little Saigon and the community that is being created stronger every day. And what's in our own backyards? Adam Abrams takes his family on a day trip to Barnston Island. And the science behind it is a new segment here where we will take you to the 53rd Annual Convention of Metallurgists. But first, let's get into it with Gunarji and Hot Topics. Well, I'm here with Gunarji O'Sullivan, who is a peer and colleague in the world of media and community radio, and we have been witness to Oppenheimer Tent City. Personally, I've been in the courtroom, the theater of the courtroom, watching the lawyers present their cases and the judge try and discern a human rights issue from a bylaw issue, and then we have Chief Dan Wallace presenting a land claim issue. And it's been very respectful in the courtroom, but she has had to put the injunction on adjournment until Monday so people could prepare their case. What's happening from your point of view?
Well, I understand they have lawyers from Pivot, like DJ Larkin, and there's the other lawyer
Brent
also.
Ponson.
Yeah, and so that's great. Now they have legal representation, but if you've noticed, most of the people that are named in the injunction, actually given a name, are First Nations people, like Dan Wallace, Brody Williams, Stella, who just happens to be in a wheelchair and an elder, very vulnerable, and then a couple of other people like Audrey Siegel. I mean, she's named in the injunction for having an illegal structure up there, which is the Longhouse. How is that an illegal structure? And so they're having to face a lot of ridiculous charges, if you want to call it that. And then, we have the threat of being conquered and divided, which is also being used against them in court, from what I understand.
The leadership within the Tent City.
That's right. And so, where do we fit in as community radio and television? What is our responsibility to those people? Because how we manage to spin it can have a really major effect on their lives. Their lives depend on that park at this point. Their housing, their stability, their security, their well-being, everything is dependent on how we as media spin this story.
Yeah, absolutely. And your point on the leadership there, I find it very admirable that the Aboriginal people have taken leadership, and when you look at the larger society, what we're seeing is an offloading of people who don't want to deal with their own family members who are mentally ill, the people who aren't winning the race with capitalism, the people who don't want to participate. They are all finding community within Oppenheimer's Tent City.
That's right.
And what I find interesting is that this leadership is coming from the native population, and I see that it is a game changer as far as a land claim issue. But it's also very much a human rights issue, because as the lawyers cite in the courtroom, the decision made in Abbotsford when there was the homeless evicted from their patch of land, the Occupy.
And remember how they did that? How they removed the people from that park was by dumping a bunch of chicken poo on top of them.
Yeah, a lot of disrespect.
There is.
But the way that it makes its way through the legal courts is very interesting, because what it comes down to, as it did in the Adams case in Victoria, where a man fought the courts and said, I have a right to be. I don't feel like I am at home in a shelter. I'm not comfortable or viable for these shelters you're offering me. I want to be here. And it's coming down to that again here in Oppenheimer, because there is an information gap between what the city is offering as a shelter and what is actually feasible for people and couples.
Yeah, so the homeless do not want to settle for a shelter-like living arrangement because it's inadequate, right?
Exactly.
But the other thing I want to touch on before, we have to end this is that you brought up, some of the situation there with taking down the longhouse and the fire and all that, right?
Right.
That fire and that longhouse was a symbol of tradition and healing for those people. So I find it really interesting that they've made that longhouse and that structure an illegal structure, and this is what, 2014 now,
it shows a
right?
lack of respect.
It does. Well, thanks.
Well, we should also mention that there is a tenants SRO gathering, and it's happening on October 19th at 487 Alexander Street in the Japanese Hall. There will be a conference of human rights activists and residents. I'm Molly Caron with Access TV. Gunarji, thank you for joining me.
You're welcome.
This is LJ Meyer reporting. City of Vancouver officials delivered a notice of an application for an injunction.
So this is, I was telling Stella that the city's gone to court today to get a court hearing on Monday to ask a judge to say campers need to go. Nothing's going to change. No one's running around in here doing enforcement. There's nobody sweeping in to move campers. But we're going to go to court and talk to the judge to say time has come. It's time to move on, and we'll see if the judge gives us authority. But I just wanted to come down in person and let you know face to face.
So how did it come to this?
Well, we just think that with the rain coming and the deterioration and the conditions and safety, and we think we've got some housing options that make some sense. They may not be what everyone thinks is perfect, but we think all the information's there. So
Which housing? Are you talking about the shelter?
the shelter, and then we got a
I'm
hotel.
at the shelter, okay? You can't even take a shower there.
The battle hasn't begun.
In affidavits accompanying the injunction, city officials made several claims. First, there were 150 people in the camp, and only 100 of them required shelter. 40 individuals had been housed, and another 50 were awaiting housing. And finally, 40 new beds at 900 Pacific and 30 at the Union Gospel Mission. Fire Chief Joe Foster also claimed that there had been a fire in a teepee and fire regulations were being broken. And the police were claiming that incidents in the park were on the increase. However, the city may have had other reasons for wanting to close down Tent City. Mayor Gregor Robertson and the Vision Party are running for re-election soon. Battle in the leadership of the camp led to the sacred fire being put out. The weather was also getting worse. It may have appeared to the city this was a good time to take the camp down.
Thank you.
So if the police or fire department warned you that there were any emergencies or any problems that had to be dealt with immediately?
No, never said anything like that.
So what sort of interactions did you have with them?
Actually, I had a good rapport with them.
Yeah.
And when they needed to know something or wanted to do something, or I needed help with something, I would ask them.
And did you ever ask them to take people away or keep them longer, people that were causing trouble around the camp?
I did. Only once. And that was the very last time that over here would cause trouble.
Yeah.
And they arrested him, and I asked the sergeant to keep him a little longer. That I did.
And did you ever report stuff that you were seeing going on around camp?
I did.
Yeah. Did you tell us about that?
That was the machete incident. Some girl had a machete in her tent, and I called 911. They came down, grabbed the machete, and that was the end of it.
So were there any other problems with firearms or weapons or anything like that?
Oh, a few people swung bars around, which happened a couple of times, yeah. But nobody got hurt.
Yeah. And the one incident I saw, the police were there and they had the guys, including your friend, in handcuffs pretty quick. So
yeah, that was actually the last one that happened.
So have there been any incidents over the last, what incidents have happened that you know of over the last week?
Just swinging the stick and then these other guys trying to defend himself. Yeah. And why he was let back out and come back here, I have no idea. Because he was arrested 3 or 4 times.
Yeah. Okay.
For the same problem.
Yeah. If the police wanted to crack down on some of the criminal element here, would you object to it?
Not in the least.
Okay.
Matter of fact, if they need a little help with something, I'd do that.
I also wanted to count the tents and the people in the camp. I participated in an account with Swampy Cree. Finding people in the tents was not easy.
I was finding that people didn't want to talk to us. Did you run across that?
Yeah, some people are shy and some people just want their privacy.
Yeah.
And I said, it's okay, so you just give me your first name and then we just wanted a count of who's in there. It doesn't matter what their name was, really. Yeah. So we basically went row by row by row like this. So it took us just over 8 hours to get the numbers that we have.
We found that there were 249 tents and likely over 400 people living in them.
Now, do you know if there's very many empty tents around here? They've been talking about empty tents, but I wasn't able to find any.
No, I think there was one, maybe 2.
Yeah.
That's about all there was.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's still not very many empty tents. A few people have left, but not very many.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll hook you up with the tent somehow, some way. But for those that have to wait, they usually sleep under the arbor.
So tell me, you got the sacred fire going and you got the kitchen back up, and how are things going with the city? Are you confident that you can get things sorted out with them?
I'm really hoping that the judge would favor us.
Yeah.
I mean, the place is very clean here. It's a far cry from what the media has been trying to tell the general public, that it's unsafe, that there's needles all over the place, that there's weapons. And, I mean, we could pick up a branch and that could be used as a weapon. But generally, from the last few days, from my observation, from being here early in the day and then late at night, things have been pretty peaceful, actually, and I talked to the people and they're saying the same thing.
What do you think would be the most appropriate thing for the police and the city to do now?
Well, finding housing for the balance of the people. I mean, even though some people leave, there's still other ones that are homeless, and they still come.
All right.
Does making it easier to vote make for a more democratic society? And should it? Well, next up we're going to hear from Jordan Tan in conversation with Sierra Mai Tilbo of the Downtown Eastside Votes. They're an organization that is taking away some of the barriers to voting. Here they are now.
Hello, I'm Jordan Tan, and with me is Sierra Mai Tilbo with Downtown Eastside Votes. Sierra, welcome.
Thank you.
Now, Sierra, could you tell us a little bit about Downtown Eastside Votes, of which I'm a proud supporter, and what it does and what its sort of purpose is for this coming election?
Yeah, so we're basically a group of mostly Downtown Eastside residents, and we're trying to get local people to register and vote in the upcoming municipal election. So our goal is to increase voter turnout, but also sort of to help people with the registering process and which I think there's a lot of barriers for a lot of residents in the area, and so we're trying to help people so register with their IDs and debunking myths surrounding that. Yeah.
And Sarah, just to be clear, the Downtown Eastside Votes is a nonpartisan group. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
And can you outline some of the challenges that are particular to the Downtown East Side in terms of access to voting facilities?
Yes.
Or access to getting to voting, to participating?
Yeah, there's a lot of barriers. One of the ones that we're addressing right now is the fact that there are only 2 advanced voting polls east of Main, and none of them are near the Downtown East Side. They're actually near a boundary. So we're trying to get the City of Vancouver to add 3 advanced voting polls that are closer to the Downtown East Side and to centers of population. But other barriers include, especially in the registration process, there's a lot of myths concerning like fixed address and IDs that impede people from participating in the elections, because if they don't have an address, or they're homeless, or they're moving around, they're couch surfers, or if they don't really know what kind of IDs they can use, that's a huge barrier to voting.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just before we go, we've only got about 30 seconds left. So I understand that people interested in getting involved in Downtown Eastside Votes can email downtowneastsidevotes@gmail.com. Phone number is 604-839-0379.
Yeah.
And finally, just before we go, we've only got a little bit of time, but everyone seems to understand that there's not as much voter turnout as there could be or should be, and they seem to think they know that this is just the way things are, and maybe it's normal, and maybe there's no way to improve it. But how do you get through to people in 10 seconds or less why this is different, about why they should get out and they should vote, not just because they're being lectured to do so, but because they actually should do so?
Because even if we help one person vote that might want to vote, then it makes a difference, I think. And so voter apathy is not just about like systemic barriers, there's invisible barriers to voting, and I think that that's an important part of thinking about voter apathy and voter turnout.
Every vote counts. Ciara, thank you for your time. Thank you for being on Access TV.
Welcome back to Access TV. I'm Molly Caron, and thank you to Jordan Tan and Ciara for talking about the right to vote. Only 1/3 of eligible voters showed up in Vancouver's last municipal election. I think we can do better this year, people. Next up, we will speak with Mark Wing, a Vietnamese Canadian citizen who's part of a growing community that wants to center themselves around Kingsway. We're going to hear about Little Saigon next. Welcome back. I'm here with Mark Wing, who is a Vietnamese community member. We share the same neighborhood of Kingsway, and we're excited to talk about Little Saigon. So Mark, you came to Canada in 1978, and you told me that you were fleeing communism. Let's begin there. What did you find when you came to Canada?
It's a freedom country, too much human right, so we enjoy it.
You enjoy it. And within the population of BC, there are many Vietnamese. What would you say the population of your community is in?
I will guess somewhere 30,000, but within Vancouver, maybe approximately 20,000.
And your own experience 3 years ago in running for municipal politics was an interesting one. You were setting an example, you tell me, for your younger friends to step up if they want change.
Yeah.
How did that go for you?
Well, I know for sure that I cannot make it, but the reason I'm running for it because I want to make a role model for my young generation, Vietnamese young generation. They know that they have the same right.
Yeah.
So, you know, maybe we start from there.
So do you think that change comes from becoming a leader in politics, or does it come from community involvement?
Both. We need to have unify of our community, and we need to have very common voice people as a Vietnamese are part of the community where they step in to involve in politics. 3 levels of Canada, let's say municipal, federal, or
Provincial.
Provincial, yeah.
Where is the Vietnamese leadership right now? Where would you rate the community in Vancouver with respect to being unified?
People, they know for sure, I know for sure, every one of us know for sure that we need to be unified. But the problem now is maybe they did not give up themselves a little bit or compromise their part in order to join together. And maybe they feel they hurt themselves to join together. So let them think about that for a little while until they know that, to make a strong community, they have to give up themselves, to compromise, to get together.
So what are the fragments within the Vietnamese community? You mentioned there was military, retired military people, as well as...
Some others group, they, because maybe they come to the same goal, but they don't trust their leadership, so they fighting for their different leadership, but they come with the same goal.
Okay, but from within there is conflict. What about women in your community? Are there any female leaders?
Yes, we do. We have some. We have the Vietnamese Women Association in Vancouver.
Right.
Yeah, we do.
And I'm interested in the title Little Saigon, because Saigon is no longer on the map. Exactly. What does it mean to give that title to the area between Windsor and Clark on Kingsway in East End?
It's a long story. I don't think that a few minutes we can tell the whole, but I try my best.
Please.
Okay? Vietnam communists are afraid of the brand name Saigon. So they try to bury that name down since they took over South Vietnam in 1975. So whatever they are afraid of their name, we brown and we like to bring them back. So Little Saigon is just, let's say, even a little corner somewhere in Kingsway. But politically, traditionally, we like that name because, whatever the communists they're afraid of, we want to bring back that kind of brand name. Little Saigon is the best to us.
Okay. Now, I've been living in this area that we speak of for 15 years, and I go for, let's get this right, pho?
Pho. Okay, very close. Very close.
Pho. My daughter actually has corrected me numerous times. I actually have a big connection with the Vietnamese youth because they come to my house. They're all friends with my children. And I have very few friends who are of my own age who are Vietnamese. So I'm happy to meet you. And I see that there's still isolation within our city, cultural isolation. How do you suggest we navigate that?
I believe that the Vietnamese people, they're very friendly, but they're afraid they talk each other. So somehow when they come together, they get used to even, they've been in this country for more or less than 30 years in 1980. And if someday they come together, then they accept this Canadian culture a little bit, then, they open heart, then they will come to, together with the Canadian here a little bit easier. And as I think that, first of all, we need to have some kind of festival
something
going on.
To celebrate.
Yeah, celebrate annually, and some Vietnamese language will be taught in school, in high school, or even elementary school.
That's a good point because you can learn Mandarin and Cantonese and
Why not
French.
Vietnamese? Yeah, why not Vietnamese? Eh?
And it's starting with food for me, trying to name some of my favorite foods. And I'm wondering, so the school system, as it does address some needs of immigrant families, what else do you think needs to be addressed within public education about the history of Vietnam?
I really don't know to how to start from there, but you know, like the Vietnamese, if someday Vietnamese they think that to get to be unified is a very important thing to do.
Yeah.
Then if someday the Vietnamese get together, I believe the community is very strong. Very strong, but for some reason they cannot compromise each other, so somehow they are a little bit apart.
So we're coming up to another municipal election in November. How do you sense that the voter turnout is amongst Vietnamese people? Are they engaged politically?
I think they do. They know that we've been talked together in the Vietnamese papers,
yeah.
And we talk to our friends. And the idea to go to vote or not going to vote somehow directly or indirectly, you know, could be inspired by politics. So they know that. So I believe this time municipal election they will go for voting. They show their, you know, the present here.
Yeah. And we have a celebration to look forward to October 18th in Little Saigon, right here in East Vancouver. For Access TV, I'm Molly Caron, fearlessly exchanging contact info and cultures.
Và một lát nữa đây thì xin mời toàn thể quý vị cùng Hoàng Nam đi dạo một vòng để cùng xem qua những trung tâm của các nước bạn đã được xây dựng tại vùng Vancouver và cùng lắng nghe và gặp gỡ những bà con Việt Nam của chúng ta đang sinh sống.
Homelessness and the tent city in Oppenheimer Park are rapidly evolving issues. This next report comes to us from LJ Meyer. Just prior to the BC Supreme Court ruling on the city's injunction to force out the tenters, he's captured the thoughts of DJ Larkin, a pivot lawyer who is representing the protesters at the park. Here she is.
What's going on in the case right now?
Right now we're preparing evidence. We'll be in court Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday morning to respond to the city's application for an injunction that would evict all the people out of Tent City.
And what do you think are the arguments against doing that?
Essentially, for our clients, the arguments are that the bylaws, when they're enforced against people who have no other housing and shelter options that are safe for them, are unconstitutional because they make their lives more dangerous and they breach their fundamental right to safety and security of the person.
What about fire violations and the you know, the affidavits from the police department and the fire department about all and the Parks Board as well about all the trouble that's happening here? What's your comments about that?
So the judge made an interim order to improve fire safety in the camp, and if you look around the camp right now, you can see that people are really trying to abide by that fire order. People are moving their tarps, spreading tents out, making the place as safe as they can, which is great. Regarding the city's other evidence that the park is generally dangerous or that there's policing incidents, what we know is that in mid-September the mayor said, you know what, the neighborhood has its own dangers. The policing has just sort of been refocused in this area, but if you move people out of this area, it just means they're going to be policing the same issues elsewhere. A lot of the dangers the cities are talking about are dangers of being homeless and are dangers of the neighborhood generally. They're not really specific to this park and they're not a reason to take the park down. Today the court granted an injunction requiring everyone living in that park and surviving in that park to vacate by next Wednesday, October 15th at 10 p.m. This is the first time in history that a court has given this much time and has acknowledged that this is not a matter of protest. The judge did not refer to this as a protest, and she truly understood that these are people who need homes, they need outreach, and they need services. She also acknowledged that people need time and they need dedicated resources to improve their lives. In giving the order that everyone must vacate the camp by the 15th, she noted that the city's evidence indicates that they have housing coming online in mid-October. She said, I ordered Wednesday the 15th as a safety measure because the city says that there's housing coming online mid-October, and I understand that to be October 15th. What there is no evidence of is that any single person in that camp will have access to any of that housing. The judge was unable to determine if there are enough shelter beds for the people who are in the camp right now, and we have been tracking shelter beds for over a week, and what we know is that there are well over 100 people living in that camp and well under 100 shelter beds in this entire city. Most of those beds are mats on a floor, and only 19 to 25 of those beds are available to women, and that's in a co-ed space on a mat on a floor next to strangers. It's been acknowledged here today that shelters are not safe for many people. Many people cannot access them. The only way to help these people is to provide housing that is stable and secure. Otherwise, we're simply cycling people through a shelter system to make them invisible so that they're not on the streets for a few days, only to cycle them back out onto the streets. Ending street homelessness through a shelter program doesn't end homelessness, it just makes it less visible.
We'll keep you updated on the future housing resolutions and the options available to tenters at Oppenheimer Park. Well, where do rare earth metals come from, and where do they go at the end of their life cycle? Access TV sent Douglas and Robey to the Vancouver 53rd Annual Conference of Metallurgists to speak to some of the innovators there. Here's their report.
My background is what we call electron microscopy.
Okay.
And electron microscopy is very similar to what we're more familiar, optical microscopy.
Yes.
It's basically to see small things.
Yes.
For example, you have air, and you want to see...
Well, the lack thereof.
That's no problem with it. But if you want more detail about air, you put that on an optical microscope, and you see a blow up or a larger area of your air, so we get more information, and you get some information about your sample we want to see.
Yes.
In our case, we use electron to be able to see smaller things.
Mm-hmm.
So using electron microscope, we can see smaller things, and this is what I present a little bit today is nanoscale.
Mm-hmm.
So we go from millimeters, micrometers, and nanometers. Nanometers is a little bit larger than atom, but very close to the size of atom itself. And why this is important is because one other people try to basically develop new material, for example, application to have a lighter airplane to save fuel. They need to be able to understand how they create them. So they have tried different techniques to create them, and they want to see the difference in the sample itself. If you just look at the sample with your eyes, you'd not be able to see the difference. You need to really be able to see the smaller feature of the sample by using electron microscopy, for example.
So basically what we're going to cover, we're going to see what how we can basically get the bitumen out of the ore sand. So looking at the structure, what you begin with. And one of the big problems that we have in the processing is the presence of contaminant solids in the bitumen product. So you cannot get rid of all the contaminant solids. So we're going to ask, what are the solids that are taken with the bitumen product? Why are they taken? And what we'll find out is one of the main information that you need to get is the carbon distribution. So you need to be able to map the carbon at the nanometer scale. So that's what we'll do here in this presentation.
You just finished with a fantastic presentation.
Thank you.
For the viewers that may not understand everything that you said, I want to get in there and delve right into it.
I make imaging systems.
Right.
And I take things that I learned from one system to another. And we've been making prototypes of an acoustic medical imager for 12 years now. And there's certain aspects of applications to things like prostate cancer, where in my system initially I would have the interference of two beams. Well, it wasn't possible in the geometry of the prostate, so we had to eliminate one beam, which we found that we could do and still get the same information. But then there's not very much room because there's the bone structure all around the prostate. And so we were able to find a method by which we could actually produce the beam inside the body, the source, and that enabled us to collect the information outside. And as I said in my talk, we don't just measure the intensity, because like other methods, ultrasound, and you look at all the other, they're collecting the intensity information, but really the important information is the speed of sound. Because the tissue is different for disease versus healthy tissue. Typically, diseased tissue, the collagen breaks down.
Bacteria are used in many hydrometallurgical leaching processes, or getting them into solution. And the bacteria either occur naturally, or you try to build a colony in the particular ore body. I'm thinking, especially in the copper industry now, there's a lot of leaching, a lot of it biological, including here in British Columbia.
The science behind it, a new segment on Access TV. Enjoyed that. Well, next up, we're going to hear from Richard Tetreault and Jerry Whitehead. They're both creative cultural collaborators, and they're here to talk about murals and art installations with Gennardji O'Sullivan.
Hello, my name is Gennardji O'Sullivan, and welcome to Access TV. Today we have Jerry Whitehead and Richard Tetreault, and they are both part of the Creative Cultural Collaboration Society. And they're here today to talk about the Black Strathcona and the East Van Crawl, and the print project. Welcome to the show, Richard and Jerry.
Thank you. Thanks, Gennardji.
You're welcome.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about the Black Strathcona collaboration here.
Sure, I could start with that. This is a project that was launched through Creative Cultural Collaboration Society in conjunction with Vancouver Moving Theatre. And what it is an interactive walking tour of East Vancouver, particularly Strathcona, with 10 of the highlighted areas having interactive videos telling the oral history of some of the significant personalities in the Black community historically. And so they were reenacted online. So you can watch them either through the website, blackstrathcona.com, or you can go to the site in front of the locations and download an app and watch them as you're standing in front of the location.
Nice.
Including Jimi Hendrix's grandmother's house, Nora Hendrix, on Georgia Street, and the chapel where she was very engaged in the community, and Militant Mothers of Raymere are brought up and talked about, and so a lot of the really key events that have happened in the neighborhood.
Nice.
So that's one thing I wanted to mention.
Excellent. What a great collaboration.
It was fantastic. So it's all online as well.
And we also did a little mosaic for the house, right?
Oh,
yes.
Yeah,
we did
that's
a
going to be
mosaic this last year. Jerry and I have worked on quite a few projects in the last year and a half. A mosaic that commemorates SPOTA, which is a community group that fought against the destruction of Strathcona by bulldozer back in the 70s. And so we did a mosaic that is going to be mounted in front of Mary Chan's house in the next year or 6 months. And it commemorates the group called SPOTA, which is Strathcona
So
property
you have mural projects over there at the Russian Hall and also at the Fire Hall. Can you tell us more about those two particular murals?
We do a lot of collaborative projects through our society, Creative Cultural Collaboration Society, and the first project that we did a few years ago, 2009, is the Russian Hall, and 3 other murals in East Vancouver. They were tied in with Britannia High School's centennial. And so we decided to paint 3 sides of the Russian Hall on Campbell Avenue. So that's what this is about here. So you can see this mural and a whole collection of others in Eastside Mural Tours.
All right.
Which is
I
a
liked
walking
the
tour.
mural at the Fire Hall because it included the Japanese perspectives, Chinese perspectives, and the Squamish. You had Marissa Nahani painting up a storm there. I mean, that's amazing that you were able to bring those 3 groups of people together.
Exactly.
Are there any other murals that we can talk about while we're on the subject?
Well, yeah, I'll just summarize maybe if I could. The Fire Hall mural was a collaboration where we worked, had a lot of outreach in the community. So we worked with, Jerry, of course, and then Eri Ishii from the Japanese community, and June Young from Chinese community. And then we apprenticed and worked with mentored younger people as well, which is where Marissa Nahani came in.
Yes.
And her family launched the mural. It was fantastic. So that's there in the courtyard of the Fire Hall. You can see that any time of the day or night. It's lit up at night. So I
Well,
just
why don't we move on to the print project? Because I know that you and Jerry also work together
Yes.
on that, and there's going to be an up-and-coming event.
Right. Well, we did a series of large wood prints, 4 by 8 foot wood prints, which different artists in the community we got involved in. Some artists with experience in printmaking, some not. Susan Point, for example, was engaged in it. Michael Abraham and Jerry, and worked with his son and Jeremy on a block.
Nice.
And we printed them with steamroller. So we printed, inked them, and then laid them on the ground and drove a steamroller over them as a printing press. So that was a really amazing event.
Amazing. And so you have an up-and-coming event. When is
Well,
that?
we actually did an event a week ago that launched it. So we mounted them all at the Waterfront Theatre, did an auction, and showed all the blocks and showed the prints. So it's actually was a project in conjunction with New Leaf Editions, which is a print studio on Granville Island.
Okay.
So a very neat project. And we may be doing one next summer. We'll see.
So what was it like for you, Jerry, to work with your son Jeremy on such a major project like the print project?
I thought it was pretty amazing, right? You just, the way I look at it is, you see your kid from a baby, and then he's working right beside you, and he's got his own ideas and, you know, his own input into the whole thing. So
Yeah.
that's what I thought was pretty amazing.
Well, you've worked on a number of initiatives here in Vancouver. I mean, like the orcas, the killer whale initiative, and can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, that was
What that was like?
through the Easter Seal House.
Easter Seal.
Yeah, with children with disabilities, and they got a bunch of artists together to paint all these eagles, bears, and orcas.
And you can see them scattered throughout the city.
Yeah, well,
everywhere.
they were at the time, but now I don't know where they're at. So they were all auctioned off, and probably all over the world, probably.
Well, a lot of his paintings have been like influenced by powwow dancers and the powwow like circuit. What other images or people have influenced you as an artist?
Well, my mother is probably the biggest one, I think, because with my new exhibition that's coming up here, I kind of have her as my first influence, because she used to make these braided rugs when I was a child, and I used to play around as a kid around all this color, right? And so it seems like that's where my colors comes from.
Yeah, you have a distinct...
Yeah, my introduction to color, so.
Definitely a distinct
patterns.
style. There's a lot of movement in each of your pieces, very colorful and inspiring, which is the name of your
Inspirations.
Inspirations.
Yeah.
Tell us more about that before we...
Well, I kind of look back at inspirations like as I was younger, right? Like, and like I said, my mom and all my family, that were doing crafts and stuff at the time, and then just dancers. A lot of my friends and cousins were dancers.
Yeah.
As I was growing up, and I used to watch them all the time, and I just got just the colors, you know.
Yeah.
Just
and
amazing.
that movement that goes with it, moving forward.
Yeah.
And also, like, I think it's awesome that you're doing this inspirational. Where can we check out the work?
At Regent College.
Regent College, where's that?
UBC, it's Lookout Gallery.
Oh, yeah.
So
Are you looking forward to that?
Yeah.
You must be. Will some of your family members be there?
Some maybe.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Gonna have a powwow? It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah,
I think I'm definitely gonna go and support your work. You've been moving so fast with all of these various projects, from the print project now, Inspirations. What do you have going for you after the Inspirations exhibit?
Well, we're getting back to the big print project, right? We're getting involved with Heart of the City Festival.
Oh, yeah.
At where I do my work, which is 458 East Hastings. You can't miss it, because there's a huge mural that we did on the side of the building called Through the Eye of the Raven.
Oh, yeah, Through the Eye of the Raven.
So you can't miss the building. So I work out of there, and that's where we're going to be showing probably 2 blocks out of out of the big print project. Me and Cody LaCoy, and he'll probably have a print up too.
Yeah, excellent.
So
and we're showing the video. There was
Yeah.
a video made of the project. So if people want to see what it was all about, they
exciting.
could come on, what date is
November 8th,
it? November 8th.
2 to 3.
Okay, well, we'll have to check that out. How do we contact you through the Cultural Creative Collaboration Society and you, Jerry?
Me, you can either phone me or get me on my email.
Okay, what's your email?
Jerry_Whitehead@shaw.ca.
And how about you, Richard? How do we contact you?
Actually, a good way is either through email or through my website. It's a contact page. My website is richard-tetro@.com .ca, and so there's a contact page on there, or rtetro@telus.net.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for joining me today on Access TV. Please be sure to look out for Richard Tetral and Jerry Whitehead, who is a Plains Cree from Saskatchewan.
Well, thank you, Gunarji. And again, you can see Jerry Whitehead's work at the Lookout out at UBC from October 9th till November 19th. Next up, we're going to have our own Wendy Havens in conversation with Savannah Walling. She's the artistic director for the Heart of the City Festival, which is coming up soon. Let's hear more.
Hello and welcome to Access Community Television. I'm Wendy Havens. With me is Savannah Walling, and she's a longtime resident of the downtown east side who co-created one of my favorite festivals. It is called the Downtown Eastside Heart of the City Festival, and it is held right here in downtown Eastside, Vancouver. And welcome to the show, Savannah.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yes. So happy to have you. Your wealth of information about over 30 years you've been producing theater and in Vancouver. And but I'm wondering, the Heart of the City Festival is connected with Vancouver Moving Theatre, and could you explain that relationship?
Yes, I can. Vancouver Moving Theatre is the lead producer of the Downtown East Side Heart of the City Festival. It's going into its 11th year, and we're producing it in partnerships with the Carnegie Community Center, the Association of United Ukrainian Canadians, and a host of other partners from the neighborhood that make it possible.
Wonderful. So now we have a new festival coming up at the end of this month, October 29th and November 9th. Can you give me a few highlights of that festival?
Well, the festival itself is, it's definitely celebrating all the artists, art forms, cultural traditions, history, activism, people, and great stories about the neighborhood. So if you come out to the festival, you'll see music, poetry, dance, theater, media and visual arts, workshops, celebrations, community feasts, history walks, a whole wealth of things.
Right.
Some of our highlights for us are the theater in the raw production of The Raymer Mothers by former Sun reporter Bob Sardi with Bill Samples, and they're telling the story with a lot of songs about the single mothers from the Raymer housing complex that succeeded in their fight to get a pedestrian overpass built over the railroad tracks so their kids could walk safely to school. Other events that are exciting is opportunity with Women in the Round to celebrate the voices of Indigenous women who've been traveling through the world sharing their lives and stories with Renee Morisseau, Sandy Schofield, Niska Napoleon, and Delana Gale Bowen. It'll be at the Interurban Gallery, a very friendly, welcoming environment. Sid Chow Tan, a longtime East Sider, will be organizing evening of stories, music, video, and a tribute to the overseas Chinese. It's Saltwater City Stories at Chapel Arts that's taking place. These are some, and then there's a Barrio flamenco dance taking place at the Ironworks. It's a really exciting celebration event too. Sometimes people wonder what we mean when we say the downtown east side, being as this is the central theme and focus of our whole festival. And we think of it in this way. Our neighborhood is the founding community of the whole city of Vancouver, and it's made up of several districts, from the Victory Square to around Main and Hastings, Chinatown, north of Hastings, what they used to call Japantown, over by Strathcona, down by Metro Vancouver. And it's also a spit of land that used to be encompassed by the Burrard Inlet on one side, False Creek, all the way to Clark Drive on the other, and the salmon-bearing streams coming up the Campbell and Canby Street areas.
Oh, so you have quite a wide audience that...
so there's a whole spectrum that we're drawing upon in terms of creating and developing the festival, and the whole network of community members that have been longtime parts of that neighborhood. Then when we produce the festival, we have people coming to see it from all these different neighborhoods, also from the East End, from the city as a whole, from Metro Vancouver all the way up to the Fraser Valley and up to Richmond, out to the Sunshine Coast, over to Victoria. And there are also people that are coming into the neighborhood as students and tourists from Europe, Asia, Latin America. And many of them will come to event after event because they enjoy so much the warm, welcoming atmosphere and a chance to find out what it's really like to live in our community.
Right.
And some of the people are coming to find out more about their own cultural roots and families. There are many, many reasons why they come.
That'd be a very important part of it.
Yeah.
You know, just for that. Is it costly to go to these events?
Most of the events are free or by donation.
Free or by donation, wow.
And there's also parking in the area, in the neighborhood too, for people.
Excellent. That festival is connected with Vancouver Moving Theatre, and I understand that there's been some exciting new news.
Yes, one of the new developments that happens recently is we're going to be moving into the former W2 down in the Woodwards building. And I do want to take a moment to say that we really give a lot of thanks to Leanne Payne, Erwin Ustindi, Sid Chautan, Jen Castro for all their hard work and dedication to make sure that there was an inclusive, welcoming place in the neighborhood. So we will be going, Vancouver Moving Theatre will be going into the building, into that area as tenants along with Kokoro Dance, who are taking the lead. And they were founded on Powell Street. And with the Vancouver International Dance Festival and Raven Dance. And so this place will be being transformed into studios for workshops and production, rehearsals and performances, and also events taking place in the atrium too.
So much culture and art in the downtown east side.
So much.
Wonderful.
And we'll be starting slowly, but we'll be adding to it over time in the,
so I
in
would
the new
say
facility.
clear your schedules, folks, and let's all head out to these events that that come up quite regularly with these theater company. And so just to mention about the Christmas season coming.
Right. I do want to mention that because most of the events are free or by donation, we are always trying to cover the costs of the hundreds of artists that get involved in the event. And so it's possible to donate by over the website through Canada Helps. It's also possible to contribute through attending Bah Humbug, and that's our East End version of Dickens' Christmas Carol. It'll be taking place over December for several nights with Jim Burns and Margot Kane among the cast. Rich with music, and with the musical director Neil Weisensell, who's also involved in the upcoming opera that's taking place.
Well, thank you, Savannah. We'll put the various websites. We'll post them on our screen.
Thank you.
And people can get more information that way. Thank you so much for coming into the studio.
You're welcome. I'm happy to share.
Wonderful.
Well, thank you to Savannah Walling for coming in. She's a busy woman. Not only is she the artistic director of the Heart of the City Festival, she's also the associate art director of Moving Theatre right here in Vancouver. You can get your program guides for the Heart of the City Festival along Main Street in the downtown east side or Commercial Drive. The festival runs from October 29th till November 9th. Well, next up, we're going to hear from Traveling Max. He's going to ask, what's in our backyard? Well, this is a fun segment about a family-friendly day trip taken to Barnston Island by Adam Abrams and his family. Well, that video was actually from a couple of summers back, and since then, Adam and his family have visited and recorded other spaces and places. We encourage you, if you would like to share with us your videography and your local news, please do. At Access TV, we're listening, and we want to hear from you. So thanks to Adam for participating and giving us a slice of his life. And thank you to all of the volunteers, and especially thank you to David Groom. He was a community television maker for 20 years. He started out as a volunteer, and up until recently, he was part of our team. He will be missed. We're going to leave you with some of the images of David Groom's career. For Access TV and for everybody here, I'm Molly Caron. It's an honor to do this. Thank you.